And now it's time for Church Chat.
Welcome, friends. It's a joy to welcome you to this edition of Church Chat. I'm joined today by Shane Watson. Shane is a familiar face in our congregation and, of course, in our Church Chat offerings. But we're here to talk to you about I think, the roaring success, Shane, if I can say, of all of the team's efforts and your efforts to present the Christmas story for its 60th anniversary this year. I just want to say officially in this format how amazingly grateful I am for all of the work that you and your team did to make sure that the Christmas story came off so beautifully this year. Really a sight to see, and something that's generated a lot of interest and a lot of good feeling in our community in the midst of this strange year. Now, Shane, I think it's fair to say, at least, that you were the executive producer of this effort. And what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of how this all came together and some of the behind the scenes stuff. So how did this idea come about in the first place?
Well, I think it was actually in the spring or summer that Kathy Mason sent me a note and was, asking about, are we going to have to not do the Christmas story this year, or could we do something different? And she had been talking with one of her friends in North Carolina about a desire to do something. And in the back of my mind, I had also been thinking about, what could we do in place of the regular in-person performance when it became apparent that that was not going to be possible this year. So I said, well, look, let's just think about it over the summer. And then we got a small group together early in the fall and just started kicking around some ideas about what we could do. And it evolved and turned into the unique production that we ended up with. And it was a team effort. There was a good team behind putting all that together, and a multi-generational team. And I think what underlied the whole thing was we just wanted to be very defiant in the face of the pandemic and say to the world that the pandemic's not going to stop the Christmas story, which has been a very important tradition at St. John's. So we felt it was important to not pass it over this year.
It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness, the saying goes, and you've certainly done that, sharing the light of Christ and the light of this wonderful story with the community. One of the things I loved about the Christmas story videos was filming on location, and there were several locations where this took place. It wasn't just in our church, though there were some scenes there as well, but some scenes around Northumberland County. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about some of those scenes that were filmed on location.
Yeah. The first thought that you might go to is just recording what we might normally do in the parish. And we tried to get away from that idea and say, well, we have an opportunity to do something unique. So let's think about locations other than the church where we can do some of the filming. And that also promoted safety around social distancing and those important measures. So doing a lot of the work outside and trying to keep the work within people's bubbles. So a lot of the actors were already within one another's bubbles. So we started off out at Richardson's Lookout. For those who might not be familiar, I think it's the highest point in Northumberland County, just kind of to the northwest of Port Hope. And we did several scenes out there. There's a very dramatic scene with the cross being processed up to the top of the hill and the sun setting in the distance. That was done there. The scenes with Mary and Gabriel together were done at a different spot at Richardson's Lookout. And there's some scenes with just Gabriel, who's announcing the birth to the shepherds. And that scene's also out at Richardson's Lookout as well. So that was one very important location, and I guess thanks to the Ganaraska Conservation Authority for having that park available. we did some scenes in the backyard at Tom and Barb Tordoff's place. So there's some scenes with Elizabeth and Zachariah on their deck, which happens to back onto a farmer's field. So it didn't look too modern. The coolest thing that we did in terms of location was at Primrose Donkey Sanctuary, where we were able to film scenes with Primrose the donkey, and that was really excellent to be able to have some live animals worked into the production.
And some wonderful still photographs from that day as well, with your children, with Spencer and Sydney. Just a joy to see that. And I have an inkling that we haven't seen the last of Primrose at St. John's. I have grand visions of having a donkey for Palm Sunday one of these years when we're able to gather in person. And I think it would just be a delight maybe to go around the block in our procession with our palm branches waving. So anyway, we'll have to check that out with the powers that be. But I think it would be a delight to do that. And now that we've made that wonderful connection with Primrose Donkey Sanctuary, it'd be just great.
Yeah, the farms that we filmed at were Corelli's farm and the Goheen farm, and thanks also to Judy Harris for cooperation in our filming locations. So
yeah, we've been so blessed by the various people in our community who have partnered with us in this ministry and made themselves so generously available, particularly during this time when things are strained and strange for a lot of folks. We have experienced such generosity, and as much as the Christmas story is our gift to the community, we've also received a number of gifts from various people, a lot of goodwill and help that's gone on. So we are deeply, deeply grateful for that. Now, you mentioned interviews. And of course, one of the great things about this presentation of the Christmas story is we get a bit of that behind the scenes look at Christmas stories past. And we hear from some people, a wide cast of characters, those who have been involved on stage, those who have been involved in the choir, those who have been involved in organizing and directing the production. I wonder if there are any moments that stand out for you from those interviews.
No single moment stands out for me in the interviews, but several times people who were being interviewed really shared from their heart what the Christmas story meant to them. There's stories about how people, vividly remember their childhood experience with the Christmas story, stories of, portraying characters and, the meaning that has to them in their as Christians, and the really strong interest and meaning that sharing that story with the community has for people in our parish. Sometimes we go about the business of producing the Christmas story, and there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and it's a lot of tasks that need to get done. So I was really, really impressed with everybody who was interviewed and how openly they shared those kind of personal moments and really what's at the heart of the story at St. John's. That was really encouraging for me.
Yeah, I felt a lot of that too. I was hearing a lot of that in the interviews. The joy, not just in the production as you would have in any sort of team effort, but what's undergirding that is the joy that we have in Christ and the story that we're telling. It's not just any story. This is the great story, the sacred story. And I heard that articulated so beautifully throughout all of the interviews. And even in the sort of the lighthearted moments, or there were a couple of questions about, the real life bloopers that took place a few times during the Christmas story. There was always this deep sense of what we were about and what we were doing with the Christmas story was something deeply, deeply meaningful to us as Christian people. I just love that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there was some, well, you mentioned bloopers, and, there were some funny stories that people relayed. And, we had new types of bloopers in the production this year that we wouldn't otherwise encounter. So as far as an editing team, which I didn't do all the editing, we had help from Jeanette Brewer here in town with editing the story, and I did the interview videos. But kind of piecing together our amateur photography into something that looked presentable on screen was fun and interesting. Yeah.
One of the great things about this is that we've captured a moment in time here at St. John's, and from an archival standpoint, I think this is just a treasure. This is something that is going to be looked back on for many years to come as a real capturing a real document of this moment in the life of St. John's, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, the videos are available on YouTube, on our St. John's YouTube page, on which you're watching this church chat. So if you haven't had a chance to watch all of them, you can go back and take a look there. But we're also committed to making these available in physical format. There is a DVD that is going to be produced of all of the segments, including the interviews. Shane, can you tell us a little bit more about that DVD?
Yeah, so we're going to produce all of the story content stitched together in one continuous video that will play from end to end, as well as all of the interview content and some things that maybe didn't make it into the production. We're going to include a selection of photographs that we have, which people have graciously submitted, and we've also done some interviews. Marion Hodgson, for example, who's got a lot of history with the Christmas story, was interviewed over the phone. So she does make an appearance in videos, but there was also a phone interview, and there's content like that that's going to make it into the liner notes. So all that's going to be assembled onto a DVD, or if you prefer a memory stick, then you can get it in that format as well. And we're going to basically sell copies of that information, so you can have a keepsake of the Christmas story, own a piece of the archives at St. John's, and at the same time help support the Christmas story and its continuation here in Port Hope.
And if you're interested in getting a copy of that DVD, we still have the email address that we were using for submission of materials and various other aspects related to the presentation of the Christmas story. And you can send an email there. The DVDs and the memory sticks are not yet being released, but we would like to get your name on a list if you are interested. So please do email. That's stjohnschristmas@gmail.com. And I think by the magic of technology, that's going to appear on the screen right now as well. Shane, just once again, thank you so much for all of your efforts, and to all of those people who are involved in front of the camera and behind the scenes in presenting the Christmas story this year. A joy and a delight and a blessing for all in our community. And I know I speak for everyone when I say how grateful we are for all of that wonderful effort.
Thank you. It was a really fun project.
Well, friends, thank you for tuning in to Church Chat, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in this space before long. Bye-bye.